Caribbeans in Tech and Entrepreneurship. I've done a few pitch competitions before, usually with a lot more time. So I think the shortest pitch competition I've ever done was maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So having a minute and a half max to kind of get out my whole business, why I started it, my idea, and even maybe throwing an ask at the end has been a task, but I think I got it. Preparation was definitely waiting last minute because I work best when I procrastinate. And so I started working on the pitch over the weekend. And yesterday I had my son actually practice with me, and he was like timing me, and like I was just really retelling the story. So the more times I told the story, the more times I would realize, okay, this was not an important part. This is what needs to be said. This is what's gonna get the attention of the judges. My son was a very harsh judge and he kept on telling me, to just be more confident and louder. So he is 7 and he's been a part of my entrepreneurial journey. He used to come to a lot of events and pitches and workshops with me. So he kind of has that sense of what should happen. So that's really interesting to see at such a young age that he knows what needs to get done inside of the pitch. And he gave me a lot of good feedback actually. And I'm just like, how do you know this? You're toddler practically. I'm definitely nervous, but I think when it comes to me being nervous, again, I've done a bunch of pitch competitions, speaking opportunities, workshops, and I've been like in front of an audience a lot. But I think what happens is that before I go on to speak, I always get nervous. It's certain type of like excitement. And so I just make sure I funnel that nervousness into excitement versus fear, because if I start getting scared, like, oh, am I gonna do well, then I just like flop. But if I say, I'm nervous, but that means I'm excited to make this happen and do a good job. I want to do well. I want to get good feedback, get good questions, and get my idea across. So funneling that nervousness as we speak. I definitely think one of the biggest obstacles that my company faces is that we are targeting a niche audience. As the name Caribbeans in Tech and Entrepreneurship, we are targeting that audience, but we are open to anyone. People from all different races, culture, religion, background have participated in our programming, but because of societal pressures and stereotypes, a lot of people think, why is it Caribbeans in tech? Why don't you just have, people in tech, humans in tech? So that concept and like battling and saying why there needs to be a space specifically for Caribbeans in tech that focuses on their needs has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're getting over that. But that I would definitely say is something that comes up often.
Let's welcome our impressive panel of experts. Liana Barber, Executive Director in Technology and Disruptive Commerce Group, JP Morgan. Frank Denbo, Startup Advocate at Microsoft. Jean-V Javeri, Founder, Jack Strategy. Rashib Thomas, Leadership Coach, Author, and CEO of RT Consulting. All right, let's get started. Georgie, so this is the moment you've been preparing weeks, if not months for. How are you feeling?
I'm nervous, but I'm trying to funnel that into excitement.
Good luck out there.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Georgie-Ann Getton McCoy, and I'm talking about Caribbeans in Tech and Entrepreneurship. I was born on the island of Jamaica. In 2002, my family immigrated to the United States, the land of opportunity and freedom, or so we thought. I was dark-skinned, had a thick island accent, and had a lot of cultural nuances. So over the next few years, I spent that time refunneling that energy and hiding my accent and leaving my culture at home. Then in 2014, I started exploring the tech and startup ecosystem, and I found out about groups like Lesbians in Tech, Women in Tech, Jewish in Tech, and these niche communities focused on helping each other get opportunities in the tech and entrepreneurial ecosystem. I wanted to create that same energy for the Caribbean diaspora, and that's why I created Caribbeans in Technology and Entrepreneurship. Over these last few years, we've grown to a community of over 1,000 individuals, partnerships with companies like New York Times, Facebook, and Google, and we have had over 25 events. We are working to create a better ecosystem and diaspora for Caribbeans in technology and entrepreneurship, and that looks like starting with building our website, that's going to be about a $10,000 investment, and then going on to getting connections with other companies that we could partner with and expose to the Caribbean niche community and diaspora. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So Georgie, thank you for presenting that. Some great questions. So I could hear your passion and the love for your land, Caribbean community. Coming from Jamaica, I've been there and it's exciting. Montego Bay to be exact. So tell me more about what you're already doing in the community as it relates to the Caribbean community.
So a lot of the things that we focus on is giving opportunities. So we realize that there's no lack of education, so to say, but just more so exposure and opportunity. So, or partnerships that we've had, for example, recently with Grow with Google, we work with them to put on workshops so that way the individuals could get access to the tools that they need to then implement their businesses or get job opportunities, but just getting to the place where the opportunity is so that way they could take full advantage of it. And we're, again, targeting Caribbean Americans first, and then we hope to expand in the next couple of years to actually doing things for Caribbeans that are actually in the Caribbean.
Okay, what I really liked about what you also said is just you highlighted niche communities, and I think anyone listening to your pitch can understand that there's a segment of the population community for everyone, and this is where I fit in and this is where I can belong. So that's what I got from that. Tell me more about, you started off with saying dark skin, thick island accent. How does that relate to the need to build the community?
So as I mentioned in the beginning, I felt like such an outsider, and for so many years, I hid the fact that, you know, I had a thick accent. I would try to speak as proper as I could, or I wouldn't, you know, bring my cultural foods to events or just talk about my experiences growing up in Jamaica because I didn't want to feel that I didn't belong or that anyone had to give me like a special scenario. So I was so focused on assimilating instead of celebrating my cultural differences, instead of celebrating my skin, celebrating, you know, that I had thick natural hair. So I just wanted to assimilate into other cultures, steering towards the Western culture, and just forget about where I came from because I didn't think opportunities would come to me if I focused on my natural roots.
Last question for me. Thank you, judges, for listening. Is there a connection between your identity and tech?
I definitely think it is in terms of how I show up. So if I'm showing up with all the stress and the pressure of assimilating to something that I'm not, or just trying to be someone else, it makes me less active, less paying attention to what I'm building. And the Caribbean culture has so many different aspects that we could involve into the tech scope, you know, using the sun for solar technology. I know there's a lot of solar power companies starting up there, the cannabis industry. So figuring out ways that we could bring our culture to the plate as entrepreneurs and technologists has even opened up more opportunities for the group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think you did a really good job of making the story personal right away, like you had my attention right at the beginning. And then when he has the follow-up question about what is it that's kind of like your superpower, I wanted to hear more about that. When did you go from hiding what made you to actually celebrating that? Is there like a moment? Is there something that you tried to do, then all of a sudden you realize like your uniqueness is what you bring to the table? So when you started talking about that, I thought that was really exciting. The second piece too, as you were talking about the Caribbean and started like, you're from Jamaica, you're doing this for the Caribbean diaspora. I think maybe throwing in some numbers there would be interesting, especially for people who aren't as familiar with that area. So how many countries or types of cultures are in the Caribbean? What is, like, I think using the word niche can often, at least where my mind went, is that it's small, but actually it's quite big, both in population, but also in diversity. So I think just like bringing a little bit of awareness into the pitch, almost, it's like all of a sudden you've like market sized a little bit. And then the last piece of it too is that you were talking about how you're not only going to support entrepreneurs here, but also entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really interesting to think about who you're supporting, but also how they're able to bring pieces of culture back, which you sort of said in your follow-up. So almost like taking elements of that culture and like spreading the word or bringing it to a greater population. All of a sudden, you're now supporting so many different types of businesses, but I think what you're doing is so great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo some of the things that my co-panelist was saying. I thought that starting off with the story was really powerful. It made me remember my family coming from Jamaica as well, and being involved in seeing that difference and understanding that the uniqueness that we have is something we need to take advantage of as entrepreneurs. Those are the things that help us to stand out in a crowd. So I love that you had that. What I wanted to hear a little bit more of is how does this grow into something bigger? How do you turn it into an engine that continues and grows and finds new business models? I wanted to hear more about that aspect of it. But I love like the core component of using your uniqueness in a way that supports you as an entrepreneur is something that I think everybody can learn from.
Thank you.
No, I agree with my panel. I think you did a fabulous job. The one thing I think that you need to do a little bit more of, make it bigger, to my co-panelist's point, and not in like, even you made the mention about your website that you would need $10,000. Make it bigger. Like if you're gonna put a number out there for money, you need to make it big, right? Because if you're trying to gain that next meeting to actually sit down and really go through the details, right? And the numbers and get into it, you need to make them see like, wow, it's a big market, there's big opportunity, and from a financial perspective, you know, they're big dollars here, right? So make it bigger, think on a multiplier. So whatever your initial thought is, multiply it times 100, right? Just make it big, right? Like your story, and bring that energy to when you're telling the story. And then the one other point I would love for you to focus on would be help connect why tech and entrepreneurship, right? Understanding the Caribbean background, understanding the niche community of it, understand like how did you find your place in this world? Like how did that make you comfortable, right? Make that connection in the presentation. But I think you did a great job and you have a great opportunity ahead of you.
One of the things I was curious about, are there other example organizations whose business model you want to emulate? Do you think that has gone through the path that you can go through as an example of a successful organization?
Yeah, so when I think of Caribbeans in Tech and Entrepreneurship, I think of us as an association more than anything, and we want to have chapters in different communities all over the country, and then again, when we bring it back to the Caribbean, different organizations on different islands. So, you know, there's a Caribbeans in Tech New York, Caribbeans in Tech Florida. So the model that I'm kind of focused on is the New York Tech Meetup. So they have like a huge model, but they've focused mainly on New York, but they've done such a great job here where they bring together people that are focused on technology. They have their pitches every month, they have their partners, and they're giving all these opportunities to individuals. And when I think of an association, NSBE is one that I look up to a lot, where they have, again, chapters all over the country, chapters inside of schools, libraries, churches. So that's where I think those type of business models are what we're going after.
Perfect. And do you see more corporate partners being the ones to fund operations, or mostly events and kind of like content stuff?
Yeah, so if I were to put a percentage to it, I would definitely say about 70% would come from like corporate partners, and the other percent coming from memberships, because we recently launched a beta test of the memberships, and people have signed up, which took me as a shock because we were doing it so long, month to month with like ticket sales. So now that people are signing up, I'm like, yes, this is great. It works. Let's keep doing this. So I'm really excited for what's to come.
Well, my question's kind of built on his, which is, what's your vision for what you're going to offer members?
Yeah, so the vision for what we're going to offer members includes access to our website/app that we want to build, where you'd be able to come on and see deals from different companies, job postings. So if you're more of a technologist and you want to work at an organization, you can see job postings there. You don't have to be a full entrepreneur. We'll have like courses that our members would be teaching. So a monthly webinar that we do, we've already started putting that into beta testing. Another thing is, you know, similar to other memberships, where if you are a member of NSBE, you get, you know, a free ticket to these type of things. This kind of access to these resources. So that's what we see for the benefits of being a member. To just say, you know, I'm a part of this community and this is who I am, and just like more verbally identifying yourself, you know, press opportunities, and just opportunities to grow your business, grow yourself, and grow your career is what we want to target in the membership features.
Got it, great. What about what's a measure of success? So if you're standing here a year from now, how do you know that you're like down the right path or moving towards your vision?
Yeah, so definitely a measure of success is seeing more Caribbean techies and entrepreneurs. So the techies getting more jobs and building more building more apps, and the entrepreneurs, finally launching their companies. Because a lot of what we have to face when I talk to our group is that coming from the Caribbean, a lot of our families immigrated to the United States. And as I mentioned in my pitch, it was for opportunities and consistency, which we kind of lack in the Caribbean. And so you're kind of told, doctor, lawyer, nurse, teacher, an accountant, those are your 5 choices. And if you're not in one of those fields, it's a little weird. So the mental support that the community offers, showing that I'm also doing something in tech, I'm also being an entrepreneur, and I'm succeeding at that, is a huge factor. So more people getting the confidence to go after those roles and launch their companies, that's how we've been measuring our success, and that's why I've decided to go full force and turn this into a company and continue to make those dreams a reality.
I think that's such a compelling point, that it's not just opening up access to jobs and funding, et cetera, but it's actually a community that offers support and also a path forward and different career paths that may not have been so obvious growing up and like what parents teach their kids. So I think that's a really compelling value proposition for the community as well. Like when you started talking about that, I was like, yeah, it feels like, yes, of course people would want to sign up for that. That's great.
Thank you.
So how did tech and entrepreneurship, how did that bring you out of that hiding of your identity and of your cultural heritage?
Yeah, so growing up, I was a nerd. Not gonna even try to deny it. I was the one that was always on computers, always reading, and like my friends didn't really get me. So that was like a space where I had to like kind of hide that personality of mine. And when I came across the New York tech ecosystem that started with a company called The Fat Startup back in like 2013, 2014, I saw that, wow, there's other Black nerds that are interested in like tech stuff, and there's this whole entrepreneurship community that I didn't even have any idea about. So I grew up in the Bronx when I moved from Jamaica, and we were so disconnected from the New York, Manhattan tech ecosystem, but on the outer boroughs, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, that's where most Caribbeans live. And so a big point of mine was to, one, tell other Caribbeans, like, this tech ecosystem, if you're also Black and nerdy like me and interested in that type of stuff, there's an ecosystem that exists here and we can be a part of it. And so that was just my passion, and just bringing other people that I knew probably also had the same passions and also had the same insecurities, because people weren't verbally saying, I'm Haitian, I'm Jamaican, I'm from Grenada, I'm from Barbados. It was just, I'm Black. And people didn't dive into their individual cultures that was a part of that. So that was my entry, and I wanted to bring people in and then have them be able to expand and grow through that.
Bring that part into the story, right? You talk about coming from Jamaica to the US, but that's not the real story. The real story is you immigrated here, you were in a community, you hid yourself within your books, right? Being a nerd, we hide behind books. And from that, you realized as you got older and you saw these different things in 2013, whoa, there are a bunch of other nerds just like me, right? And now I want to help expand that, because I realize that there's a lack of access in the community. Even though we live within the 5 boroughs, if you're in these outer 4, you don't really have access to what's going on here in Manhattan, right? And into the tech ecosystem. Bring that to the pitch, right? Because that pulls at the heartstrings a little bit, and that sucks you in, right? It's kind of like, oh, well, that's interesting, right? So that, I think that bring more of that to the story.
Thank you, definitely will add that on.
Leanna, if I could say, there's still a disconnect for me around what she asked about the shift. So if in the Caribbean they encourage doctor, lawyer, accountant, and the like, how did tech show up, or how did a computer show up?
For me personally, it started with my dad. My dad was a mechanical engineer, and at first he would work on the railroads, and then he transitioned into cars. And then once, there was like phones and technology slowly started trickling into the Caribbean, he was one of the very few people on the island that took a chance and started fixing this technology. And as the oldest of his children, I got to break and fix everything alongside him. So that sparked my initial interest. The PlayStation came down there, here Georgie, play with it. Phones came down there, here Georgie, play with it. I had my first cell phone at like 7. So just being interacted that way and just seeing his love for that engineering and turning it into technology, and just being open to that, and just saying, there's so much that could go on this little device, and just all the worlds that were open to me when I went on these devices. I was just like, I love this. This is great. I want to talk about this. I want to tell everybody about this. And all my friends, they knew anything tech-wise, cell phone, go to Georgie for it, but it wasn't celebrated. It was just like the thing that I could do. So I wanted to be able to celebrate it and talk loud and proud about what I was interested in and what I love to do, and see who else might have been hiding in the shadows and trying to get accounting degrees. Like I tried to go for an accounting degree because I thought that would make me fit in, and that it didn't. So when I took my own path and things were working and I saw progress, I was like, maybe there's other people out there that have that same fear and are doing the same things.
So now I got it. Daddy's girl had a love for tinkering, and it turned into Caribbeans in tech. I got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much for the great feedback.
Congratulations, Georgie. How do you feel about your pitch?
Great, it was amazing.
So was there anything surprising that the experts asked or forced you to think about differently?
Yeah, just thinking about how I told the story and including more parts of what made me interested in technology, since my company is about Caribbeans and technology.
So now that you're armed with all of this amazing feedback, what are your next steps?
The next step would definitely be to bring it back to the team, and so that we could continue developing our story and going out for some partners and funding.
Sounds like a plan. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was nervous. I've never been on a shoot before, and so just the lights were there and I felt, a little famous. But it was excitement. Again, it was just wow, this is kind of a moment that, all entrepreneurs want, getting that feedback, that publicity, and kind of being in front of the lights. And so just having one of those moments right now is just really good. And I hope for many more lights and action in the future. So it was, a little bit of tough love, a lot of good feedback, such as support and to tell me to keep going, and as well as some feedback of miscommunications of what I should be adding in, so that way people get it instantly right off the back and I don't have to over explain. It's just, yes, we understand. What do you need? How can we open up our wallets to you? Being Caribbean, no matter what your field, coming here in the United States, you have to kind of assimilate. And then I had to do a second assimilation because I was inside of the tech and entrepreneurship scope, which is even misunderstood in my own community. So not only did I have to explain to regular people why it mattered, I had to explain to my own community why it mattered. One of the judges, he didn't, even after I answered a few questions, he still didn't understand the importance of it or the value. And I think that's gonna be a challenge when I explain to a lot of people, why does this group need to exist? Why don't you just go to SCORE? Or, there's other groups that focus on just Black. How is that different from Caribbeans? Isn't all the same thing? Are the islands connected? So just those kind of questions. Talking about that a little bit more earlier so that people see that there's there is an issue, and that it can be solved, and what it takes to solve that problem. Here I am today doing this pitch. But this is one of my companies. I've launched various companies, and about a year ago, I shut down one of my longest running companies. When I did that, a lot of people from my community are like, look, see, that entrepreneurship doesn't work. You failed at it. And I felt compelled to go and get a regular job, a 9-to-5, and I had never worked a regular job straight out of college, been an entrepreneur all the way. And that pressure to get a regular job, sunk me. I was in a very emotional place. I shut down my company after 3 years. That's a baby to me, So I got a regular job, and people celebrated that so much more than they've ever celebrated. A lot of the entrepreneurial things that I did, I have a podcast, I'm an author. So I have multiple companies, so the entrepreneurial things didn't get celebrated as much as this job that I was just getting to prove to everyone that I am good enough. I still know what I'm doing. My degree was worth something. And it just made me point blank miserable because that's just not what I wanted to do. Today was actually my last day at this place, and I quit. And they're like, oh, why did you quit? It was such a fun, you finally in the, I was in the health, it was, the company was in the healthcare industry. I need to play my strengths, and I need to be here for other entrepreneurs. I've helped so many, hundreds of entrepreneurs and individuals get jobs, land internships, start their career, build their companies. And that's what my purpose and my calling is. And if I continue to let my community kind of hold that back, then I'm not proving to them that what I'm trying to do here is actually true or it matters. So I have to I have to lead by example and show that being an entrepreneur, being a techie is gonna create more opportunities, and starting with myself, like this is what I'm gonna do, and no one's gonna kind of psych me out of it. So that has been an in and out challenge, and I no longer let people hold me back from what I want to pursue as an entrepreneur. And I know my purpose is to be an entrepreneur that helps other entrepreneurs and individuals get opportunities.
Do you think your son would be proud of you or your pitch today?
I think he would. He'd probably tell me, "Mom, you were looking at the light. You should have been looking straight." But you know, he's a very hard critic. But I think he will be proud, and I want him to see me, for example, knowing that even at such a young age, he knows that he could go out and do whatever he wants to do. For him to know that if he pursues singing or dancing or anything creative or anything that's not like a traditional role, that he's not going to be judged for it. And so just knowing that he's been able to think outside the box and see other opportunities because I'm leading by that example, I hope that future generations of Caribbean individuals and people of Caribbean descent, and just like the Black community and all communities, feel that they can succeed as entrepreneurs or at traditional roles or creatives or artists, just whatever you want to do, as long as it makes you happy and you can maintain your bills, go for it, and you will be successful.